Hello, everyone. This is John Coleman here with a time zone challenged episode 53 of A Conversation With, today with Nicholas Peter. Welcome, Nicholas.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your good humor with our scheduling back and forth there. So we're going to have a great interview here. We're going to talk about a whole lot of things on this very busy day on my channel and busy day in the world, and where are things going with these lockdowns. And we're going to talk about all other things and maybe more productive and happy things too, gardening and orgone and all this sort of thing. Before we do that, one announcement is that actually two. The journal for the college here in Connecticut is out, so that will be on the website of ApocatastasisInstitute, which will be in the description of this video. And then anyone who's interested, in the next 2 weeks, we're going to have 2 online conferences on the same topic, that is, where is education going? And the 2 audiences are for parents and students, and that would be college students, of course, and then the general public. That's one. And then the other is teachers and professionals in the classroom. So all of that information will be on the WordPress site, and anyone watching can access that from the description as well. In the course of our freewheeling discussion now with Nicholas, we're going to get going, but anyone who wants to can put a question or whatnot into the chat on the side of this StreamYard website, and after this recording, any correspondence can be put in the comments section below. So with that, Nicholas, tell us a bit about yourself, your channel, and let's take it from there.
I am 27 years old. I live in Illinois. I'm currently working now. I was unemployed for a few months because of the Now Foods thing, which I'm sure you want to get into. Yeah, I've been gardening for a few years, since 2017. I started doing my own organic products as well, like hand soap and shampoo and lip balm, toothpaste, a bunch of other things. What really got me into learning was watching the documentary Zeitgeist, those kind of documentaries that really got me out of the political system, at least, and into what technologies can do for us to free us and not have it where it's a centrally controlled type of thing, but if it's more decentralized. So that really got my mind going, and yeah, just delving into natural stuff, avoiding chemicals, trying to do some self-help stuff. I had therapy. I read a couple books, and that definitely helped me out of depression that I had for 8 years. So I'm still struggling with that. But yeah, my YouTube channel, I started doing that because I wanted to make some sort of impact, because I'm really nervous in person. Like, I don't usually go out and talk to my neighbors and do that sort of thing. I'm trying to get better, but yeah, I just wanted to do things I was passionate about on YouTube, and I joined a little late, since YouTube's been doing a lot of censoring for the past couple of years anyway, so I was late to the game in that regard. So it's been a little disheartening. Like, sometimes I really try to crunch out some stuff, but then other times it's where I'm just stagnant and getting a little depressed or things along those lines. But I'm only human. I'm trying to do as best I can. And I know that you've been doing a lot of uploading, and I definitely admire that. And it's good to see, and it's very inspiring for me as well.
Yeah, it's very important to be doing these type of collaborations and reaching out and things, because we're being bombarded, and if our mood takes a hit, it's not for no reason. There's a total war going on right now, psychically, in terms of just the physical environment, and you know, with interpersonal breakdowns. These things were already going before this COVID stuff, but you know, with where's my mask? Where's my mask? I don't know. Here's a tissue. How am I supposed to, you know, what type of relationship can I have if I'm dressed like this, and my brain is oxygen deprived, and everyone, you know, out on germs and all this sort of thing? It's it's tough. So the purpose of this conversation is not to get bummed out, but actually to work on building our defenses, because that's the name of the game. But by the by, do you know you mentioned Peter Joseph's Zeitgeist and the angle there, Nicholas? Are you familiar with Michael Tellinger's work?
Michael Tellinger, I must not be. It doesn't sound familiar. He's
from, I believe, South Africa, but you might want to look into his work too, because it's in a similar vein that Zeitgeist, I think, was hitting around about a kind of seeing outside of the box and whatnot. So after the fact, you can go look him up there and social theories. I forget, there was one word they use out that way, I think from the tribes or something, about his idea of social organization, very different than the Western model. But
agorism?
Anyway, what's that? No, not agorism. No, it's one of them African words.
Okay.
It's like it's not Ubuntu, but it's something like that. You see. Anyway, the spark that got me interested in Nicholas's work here, and I think it's very pressing for a lot of us, is the video you did, Nicholas, on workplace checks, temperature checks, and actually you had a good introduction by actually showing a film, I imagine, from your work. So can you talk about, I suppose a good way to take this, we'll talk about the dynamics of workplace checks, and then we can maybe bring it personal to your own reaction to that in the Central Time Zone.
Yeah. So my workplace, we have 3 different locations. We have one in Nevada, we have one in Roselle, Illinois, and then one in Bloomingdale, Illinois. And I was at the Bloomingdale location. Nevada was they had a case of COVID, so they said that they were going to be doing a whole cleaning and things like that. And then the Roselle had one, so they were talking about doing temperature checks. And I was like, okay, well, I was trying to prepare myself a little bit. But so yeah, they were talking about doing temperature checks before even getting into the building. They were suggesting that you wear your mask all the way to work while you're still in your car driving. And then you have to like roll down your window just to show your forehead so they can scan it and see how much your temperature is. It can't be over 99 or something. And then if there was, they would send you home and you have to get a test done, a COVID test. And then if you were fine, then you were able to go in there. But we were mandating masks as well, which, well, I was already used to doing that because at work I was using masks every now and then when I was making capsules, because it's a natural food company and they make natural products. So yeah, they started doing the temperature checks, and they had, for people that are off the main hours, the main like entrance hours, they had like a big plexiglass corner shield thing that you had to stick your head in and get it scanned that way. And yeah, that's basically what they started doing.
And that film you had, to preface your own presentation, that was from the company?
Yeah, they had that showing, because I recorded it on I think my last day there, that I actually went inside the building. And yeah, they were having on a loop. They were just playing it in like the hallway where the lockers were, and it was on multiple TVs at once, and yeah, so it's the actual company produced that video.
Okay, so I will put that for reference for the audience. I will put that in post-production in the description here. So I would encourage people to watch that. And there's a certain disconnect. I'm sure you've probably come across this with people you're interacting with. In general, we're more and more online, but when we see something like this in real life, it kind of takes us off guard, doesn't it?
Yes, it very much does. And that was the thing when I was first hearing about the COVID stuff and started seeing how it was something I should take seriously, at least take steps to prepare myself personally. So I bought a lot of products for immune system and stuff. I wasn't too worried about the thing itself, but just making sure my dollars are going to be buying something. So I might as well buy some supplies like food and water and things along those lines. But
good time for a PSA. People, this would be a good time in these months ahead to get food, to stock up on food. I don't know what's happening in a lot of directions, but I do suspect we'll be fighting over food in the months ahead, or at least we'll be told to do so from the media, the same way they told us to fight over toilet paper. This would be a very good time to stock up.
Yeah, very much. And I would recommend newmanna.com. It's NUMANNA.com. And they have no GMOs. They have basically no preservatives. They have no like genetically modified stuff. So compared to like Patriot Pantry, and because I have them too, but just the quality is very, very good in New Manna. I think they still might be back ordered for like 60 days, but luckily I was able to get mine. But I definitely recommend them. They have really good quality.
Now, Nicholas, can you, as much as you would like to, can you share with us the interaction you had at work about these checks and all that? I mean, how did that go? Because I understand you left that situation, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like, yeah, the couple weeks before, like the other businesses that we had, the other locations, they were getting hit. So I was thinking to myself, well, what am I going to do if this were to happen here at my job? So I was thinking that, okay, I would do it, but I would make a real big stink about it. I would start talking out and speaking up and doing that because I was just scared of losing my job. And like, what am I going to do? I'm making X amount, 700 a week, mandatory overtime. I'm lucky enough to have a job. So that's my mindset when I was hypothetically thinking about it. But yeah, like you said, people are so tuned in to like the web that when something happens to them, like personally, it definitely is a wake up call. So when I walked in and I saw that video that they had looping back and forth, I got very upset. Passionately upset. I knew immediately I'm not doing this, just inherently. Like what I thought I was going to do before is just irrelevant. Like I'm not doing this. I can't. Like I can't even get inside the building because I'm going to be so disappointed in myself. It's like me, I'm trying to talk to people and wake people up to some extent. And I was learning more about the virus and how phony it was. And then they were going to start pulling this. So I was like, it's going to go against everything I'm standing for, all the principles I have. So for me, I talked to my supervisors that day and I told them, hey, I'm not going to be here. I'm not doing this. And they were like, oh, well, it's not that bad. Like it's once they start taking your blood or something, it's like as if it's a joke, because I feel like I told them, I feel like they're just trying to train us and get us mentally prepared to do it out, going to the grocery store, going to the doctor, or we get your temperature taken at the doctor anyway, but like just going into any public setting, I felt like it was just a good conditioning tool, see how much they can get away with. And this was a company decision. It wasn't where it was mandated by the government or anything, but so I respect that because they can do what they want. But yeah, I told HR about it and they were not understanding my opinion at all, my mindset. I tried to offer some different information and they're like, okay, yeah, sure. And I can just tell from their face that they were just saying that. They weren't actually interested in learning anything else from a different side, from other professionals. So yeah, that Monday, that was on a Friday. And then the following Monday, I went in there and I refused it. And then they said they were going to call me. That's what they were telling us, that they would call anyone that refused it to talk about employment, but I never heard from them. And then I get a piece of mail that says, oh, you did a no call, no show for like 3 days. So you were going to say you quit. I'm like, okay, I didn't, but I just refused to work. They didn't fire me. I didn't quit. But then they're saying that I quit. So I was like, okay, well, this was a company I was already a customer of, and I was believing in the company. That's why I was there. It was actually fulfilling. And then this happens and I try to stand up about it. And I'm the only one in my location that did it, which is sad. I had a few people at my work that were smart enough to see through it, but they chose to check.
Yeah, and you mentioned that in your recording too, Nicholas, and that's, I think, something a number of us are perceiving is that I've seen it in my little perch in my neck of the woods, and I know others have commented on this. I don't know what you call the little eddy that we're in, the truth community. I don't know, but a lot of people, with this, I see this as a massive shoehorning with this COVID. Really trying to jam through a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
There may, for very compromised people, very, very elderly people, or very, very young babies, there may be some sense to these precautions. But for the majority of people, this certainly seems like a lot of social agendas. And a lot of the chest thumpers, a lot of the people for the past couple of years they knew what was going on. They were into it, right? Where are they now? Where are they now?
Yeah. And that's also something I was thinking about was like this first one, I now realize it's not even close to as bad as they were saying it was going to be. So, and like so many things have happened behind the scenes, like you're saying, like they're able to shoehorn as many things in, like the financial system with the Federal Reserve not allowing or saying that no banks have to have any physical dollars anymore. There's no reserve ratio across the board in America. So that, I mean, that's huge. It would be huge on any other day besides like this COVID stuff. So like so many things have happened behind the scenes, and then more division and then the Black Lives Matter stuff with the riots and police and infiltration and provocateurs, maybe people getting paid. Like, I'm not sure, but yeah, I've seen this. I see this second wave potential or third wave potential for like a crying wolf situation. Like the mainstream media was crying wolf this time, and it wasn't as bad as we said, as we thought it would be. And so, like for me, I'm not stocking up on masks right now, but who knows? Maybe the second or third one, the media will start crying wolf, and everyone's gonna be like, "Oh yeah, whatever you say, we're not gonna take it serious." And then it actually ends up being serious. I'm waiting for that. I think that might be some sort of plan, because that makes sense to me to really catch people off guard, especially since the first one wasn't as bad. But yeah, I know there's so many nuances to this. It's just insane, and I haven't been keeping up on nearly half of the stuff that's been going on. Unfortunately, that's my personal decision. I haven't been doing that much learning recently, but.
Now, I want to find a specific quote in this book, Nicholas, so I'm going to dig around for it. But before we get into specifics, and we're going to talk about libertarianism, which I know you have an interest in, and we can bring it up in that context of specific things that are happening and whatnot. I think with both the dynamic of employment, look, we want to, as an audience here, pull the focus way back over the past couple hundred years, which is what the quote I'm going to try to dig up here concerns. But over at least the past 200 years, and in a really systematic way the last century, we've really been maneuvered, we in the West in particular, have been maneuvered into this employment situation. And we can see that I'm going to make a parallel also with the monetary system. Can you recite what you just said about the money?
Oh, the Federal Reserve allowing, making it to where there's no reserve ratio. So now the banks don't have to have a single physical dollar in their bank. They changed that. Okay,
so we want to make a parallel here, and I'd like to comment while I dig things up here. There's a parallel here that I perceive, that it's just constantly wearing away at things. So there were massive labor upheavals 100 years ago, where people, this was new to them, and people realized what a ripoff working for someone else was. And to the point now you described, the real vulnerability we have, where we are really in at the pleasure of strangers and at their beck and call, with no hope, which is what this quote here concerns, with no hope really of ever setting out on our own to not be in that situation. We've been maneuvered here, and the education system, my little bailiwick, has been very complicit in this, has been shamefully complicit in this. But this constant wearing away, to the point now with these sorts of rigmarole that you describe, that even the chest thumpers, even the patriots, right? They all shut up, like you pointed out at your work. Where were these people? Little by little, we've been worn away. So I built that up, and I also want to just reference the money too. You know, money used to literally be something, used to be a physical thing. Not to get too technical, but if you just take Latin, the word for money in Latin is pecunia, right? It comes from pecus, which is an early word for cow. So literally, the money, the metal coin, used to be one coin to one cow, right? And then as the centuries have gone by, the money becomes less and less connected, right? Then it's connected just to gold or silver. Then it's connected in the 70s to this abstract thing called the gross domestic product. And now it's not, as you pointed out twice, it's not connected to anything. It's all in the head at this point. So would you like to, could you elaborate a bit more on that, if you please, while I dig up this quote about this, just the employment situation, the money situation, and the psychological reality of this?
Yeah, especially with the workplace. Once I lost my job and I voluntarily refused to work, like, yeah, I was like a lost dog, you know? It's like I'm just so used to that schedule, and getting out of that normal schedule, my sleep got messed up. Finding the drive within myself to get things done, I thought I would have it, but it just wasn't really there that much. I was able to scrape a few $100s together by doing some odd jobs here and there, but I wasn't consistent about it. And I was battling my own stuff. I've been battling with some depression on and off for the past few months. Like, my brain also hasn't been working that great. So for me, just to read a book, it's hard for me to absorb that kind of information. So I've been depressed about that. And I'm human, you know. I'm like, yes, I make some videos here and there, but I know that there's a lot of other people that are doing a way better job, which is why I try to support those people at the very least. But yeah, in terms of the money, you would think that would be like one of the easiest bridges to help someone cross, is the money system, because it's what we base our whole entire lives off of, and what we can do for our children and go on vacations and all these things. And there's so many people that just glaze over, and I literally have no interest when I try to break it down as simply as I can. And especially when it concerns them, it's not just some abstract idea or subject I'm talking to them about. It's a physical thing that affects everyone on a daily basis. Like, where is all this crime coming from? Most of it's from lack of resources. And you made a great point about the education system, because I went through that ringer, and then I ended up having no passion to learn. Like, I was so grateful to get out of high school, and I was like, oh, now I'm just gonna be able to smoke weed and go to work and then watch TV and play video games. You know, I literally was thinking that. And then learning about self-help stuff, learning about how to add tools for my mental toolbox to be able to deal with problems, I was able to see how good information can really be and how empowering and practical it can be. It's not just some algebra that I'm never going to use. It's going to be something where I'm actually passionate and want to learn it. And that's another key linchpin for education, is where's the passion? Not coercing people to go to school, but where they're passionate and they know that they can delve into the things they want to delve in. If they want to be like a farmer or something like that, they gotta have some prerequisite knowledge in order to get there, and they'll be able to do that, and willingly, because they'll know that those are steps they need to take. So you made a great point right before I started talking, and like everything you said was excellent. I definitely agree.
And might I ask, and I want to pay attention to you. I don't want to pay attention to me flipping in the book here. People who want that quote, it's from H.G. Wells's Outline of History. Go to my review that I lately did on H.G. Wells's Outline of History, because I specifically bring up that quote, which basically talked about the despair of modern workers and the vulnerability and the hopelessness of the situation. So I think I made the point anyway out loud. It's in the text, and you can find the reference in the other video. Can I ask you, Nicholas, you talk about self-help.
Yes.
In the as Michael Hines, a guest recently on this series, pointed out, in the 15,000 hours, something like 18 or 19 with college, of industrial schooling, how much self-help training were you given?
Absolutely none. Absolutely none. I didn't go to college or anything like that, but yeah, high school and all that stuff, didn't speak a word of it. And I actually became a teacher's aide a couple years ago, and I went to my old middle school, and I like stood up during one of our institute days, and I told them like, hey, I went through this whole thing. I didn't learn anything about self-help. I think that's a tremendous thing to teach kids, psychology, how to actually interact with people, how to deal with your emotions and problems. Because that's what happened to me. I dealt with a breakup that I was the cause of, and I just had no idea how to get out of that rut. And I was in that rut for almost a decade, and it was brutal. It was really brutal, but school did not prepare me in practical ways. So, yeah.
Yeah, ironically, for a field that is markets itself on shovel ready and being in the real world and all this STEM sort of thing. Although now I'm told that defund STEM, hashtag defund STEM, along with defund police. But howsoever, it is interesting that actually, truly implementable things like self-help are largely ignored. I think back to through much of my 20s, the real disconnect between myself and my body and just basic maintenance of things. And it's really quite interesting that none of this was ever, it may have actually, this stuff may have been brought up formally on a classroom board, but just and that's what I'm trying to get to people for all these years. It's not what is actually being taught in the class. It is largely secondary. In my opinion, the real damage of modern education, and this goes for homeschooling, and this goes for private stuff just as soon as public, as I see things, is the real damage is between the lines. It's sitting down for 6 hours a day. It's being just following directions without any feedback or even thinking outside of that structure. That's the real damage. It's not what's being taught. People get hung up on that stuff. It's the grammar between the lines, including just that lack of having time to grow into yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you're saying, like even with homeschooling, yeah, like they're still to a point coercing their children to sit down and learn, and you have to do these books and the whole 9 yards. And yeah, it's a great way to just believe authority, whatever authority says, this is in the history book, so this is how it happened. And I forgot what that gentleman's name is. I have a few of his books. He was the teacher for 20 years in New York City. He wrote a bunch of books. I wish I could grab it right now, but
John Gatto.
Yes, John Taylor Gatto. And yeah, he had a whole thing about the Prussian model, and he had like a huge article talking about the Prussian model and key things that they wanted to have accomplished. So one of them was like no critical thinking, just believe authority and follow directions.
Yeah, that's a really interesting study there. When Napoleon enters Prussia, right, this brand new French Revolution, cutting edge, enters this ancient, decrepit mindset, although Prussia was somewhat new, but the mindset, and he trounces the Prussian army. The Prussians come up with this whole system to never ever have that happen again, and they come up with this robotic formation system that Gatto elaborates. And is he still alive?
I'm not sure. I don't think he is, but I may be wrong.
Yeah,
I don't know offhand.
I know he had some health issues a few years ago. I think he had a stroke. But that would be one to follow up on. But he's been in the saddle for a long time, at least up to that stroke, and hopefully he's still around and well. But a man well worth looking into for anyone who's interested in the ed subject.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, Nicholas, let's turn to your real interests there of yes, self-help, but also gardening and these things, which I think go a long way to undoing a lot of the mind-body disconnect that we pick up in school, just being in the soil, being with plants and dirt and so forth.
Yeah, the first thing, like, because I was never interested in gardening. I always thought of it like, oh yeah, flowers and whatnot, that's cool, whatever. I was always outside, but I never really thought of it as like some sort of passion that I would have. And it wasn't until early 2017 when I watched James Corbett's video on guerrilla gardening and just the huge impact that can make and the big middle finger it can be to the whole system. And it provides you some self-reliance. It's a very practical skill, very valuable. You can barter that skill out with people, even just the crops that you produce. So I saw the real tangible, real world benefit for doing so. So I started that year, and a lot of, like, I didn't even know how to transplant a plant. Like 5 or 6 of my plants died immediately because I just was knocking all the soil off of them. I didn't even know how to transplant. I had no idea. So it was only a couple of bucks a plant. So I was like, oh, it's a cheap little lesson. But yeah, the more I was doing it, the more I was learning, and I was watching also videos. There's this gentleman on YouTube, John Kohler, and he has the YouTube channel Growing Your Greens. It's got like 500,000 subscribers, but the guy is super genuine. He's all about organic and natural and no chemicals, and obviously, and I've been slacking on even doing like gardening, learning. This is my 4th year, and I'm getting more stuff accomplished. I'm doing a lot of cannabis this year for sure. I've been doing it for the past 2 years, and I'd love to get into that. Oh man, the past 2 years, people have been messing with just specifically those plants, just because of their mindset. They think that I'm the bad guy. They think they're doing like a service for the community by destroying my stuff.
Really?
Yeah. And it's just pathetic. I've had conversations where people were like, oh, you'd really like hit somebody if they're like, if you see him destroying your plants. I'm like, yeah, what do you mean? I'm not going to talk to him while he's, it's like my thing's about to die. It's like, you have no right to do that. Of course I'm going to defend my stuff, my property. Like a lot of people don't even understand that. And so, yeah, with gardening, it's just been excellent being able to do, just to learn, do different plants, be able to recognize things even in nature now. Like I'm like, oh, I'm growing this. I know exactly what this is now. I can easily grab this if I needed to. And like learning local things that are edible in your neighborhood or your state, that's also a very valuable skill. Yeah, it's just been excellent. It's been very fulfilling, and it's therapeutic. Yeah, like you're saying, like having your hands in the dirt. I'm also going barefoot out there, so I start grounding, and that definitely calms me down. It makes me feel better. So it's just been excellent, especially this year.
Can you elaborate on grounding if people are unfamiliar?
Yeah, it's I guess you can do it with any part of your body. So you can like lie naked on the grass if you wanted, but it's basically just having your bare skin on the grass or in the dirt, and it helps. It's basically, since we're electric beings and the Earth's electric and we're magnetic and it's magnetic. It just helps. I'm not even sure like totally what it does to help out, but it just makes you feel better, and it kind of recharges you, so to speak. You feel better.
Yeah, I mean, the body has an electrical charge. That's how this nervous system is working. So the concept, as Nicholas pointed out, is that if you're wearing, for instance, rubber-soled shoes or leather-soled shoes, that charge is not dissipating, and so that creates essentially an overabundance of electricity. If you're not, one could theoretically, as you pointed out, ground out with, this is why we get, sparks or whatever when in the wintertime, especially, because you have those electrical charges. But that's the idea, and it causes perhaps inflammation and so forth. And I've spoken to many people that have benefited from this.
Yeah, and like
helping, actually, including myself, I had quite a problem with inflammation and almost edema and things a couple of years ago until I started doing a bit of that grounding.
Wow, what's edema?
Edema is a type of fluid buildup, and I think it was in conjunction with a type of a flare-up of arthritis that I had. So but that when the spring came along and the shoes came off, that went back. So.
Wow, that's excellent.
And it's interesting because, and this has been the case with a few recent guests that I've benefited from, and the audience has benefited from, and we benefit from you, Nicholas. There's this topic of artificiality which comes up in it's like a boxer. It's from all these different directions. And it's important, if our mood is rocky these days, to realize we are under a real bombardment, and some of that's engineered and some of it's not. And to a certain extent, it's irrelevant whether it is or not. We just need to be aware of it and correct for it. And that is in a lot of ways, but just getting back into these rhythms, these diurnal rhythms, just being outside with sunlight and things like that. And that these have this environment that we're in and we're subjected to, this is why people are so bugged out on all sorts of things, or they're depressed, or we had this horrendous substance crises. I mean, these are all symptoms of a disordered society, and a society that's under a real manipulation.
Yeah, certainly. God, you made so many points. It's like I don't even know where to start. I like lost my train of thought. Oh, sorry. Just as a side note, someone in the comments, John Ziemba, he said, sadly, we lost Mr. Gatto in 2018. So, yeah.
Pull it up here. Yeah. So thank you, John. John is always very, very good with the comments and very helpful there. And we certainly, at this point, I would recite once again any comments or questions we can bring up here or bring them up as we go along.
Yeah. Bearable Pain is asking who I am. I'm just a normal guy. I have a YouTube channel, which is my name. It's Nicholas Peter. I've been uploading for past couple years. I've been on and off with it. As with anyone else, I'm human, you know, and like John was talking about, especially nowadays, people are getting a lot of pent up kind of anxiety or getting depression. And I'm totally one that's even recently dealing with that, you know, even with my whole gardening and being outside and understanding that grounding totally helps me. I still sometimes am cooped up for like a whole day just inside, and I feel sorry for myself and I get all sad, and, you know, my mind's just in the gutter, you know, I just don't even have any confidence. So it's even me with learning self-help, some self-help stuff, and having a therapist for a couple of years, like I'm still having a hard time. So like I can't imagine someone that hasn't done any sort of introspective work and is dealing with maybe having kids and also a job that's not there anymore. It's unbelievable what some people are probably going through.
Yeah, this kingdom's falling down, and people are trying to shore it up. And I said exactly, you hit the nail on the head there. I can't imagine what it would be like to not have spent the past 10 or 15 years at least somewhat aware of certain trends in the West, or, you know, the past how many years all of us have been keeping up. I assume, you know, the viewers of this and yourself, Nicholas, we've been at this for a couple of years in our different areas of interest, but we can see there's an agenda moving, or agendas moving together. And at least we have a certain consciousness. I can't imagine what that would be like, you know, just to wake up in the middle of March and the experiment's on.
Yeah. Yeah. And in terms of like the agendas and stuff, like when I was hearing about the defunding the police, the whole Black Lives Matter protests and stuff, I saw a flyer in my neighborhood and I was like, oh yeah, defund the police and put it into the communities. That makes sense. You know, like I think we should privatize the police force. You know, I think we should have way more accountability. It shouldn't be where there's like internal investigations. It should be like anything else. Like if you're not doing a good job, you're fired. Like where are the mall cops beating up grandmas and the security guards beating up grandmas or beating up kids or doing anything? They're not doing anything like that. You never hear that because they have accountability. You can be fired in an instant. They don't have that job security in that sense where you can just unabashedly just throw some power moves at people and think that you're going to be able to get away with it. It's unbelievable. And yeah, they're destroying these cities. Some of these major cities are getting burned or being looted and all this stuff. And they're talking about defunding the police and putting it into their communities. So what I was thinking initially was, well, I think this is a great way for them to say, yeah, we don't need police because now we can do like the smart grid and we can do the CCTV cameras and we can do all this other stuff. And then we don't need police, literally. And then we are putting it into our communities, literally. So people can say, oh yeah, it sounds good on paper, defund the police, put it into our communities, but how are they going to do it? It's not going to do it. They're not going to do it the way that we think, the logical, reasonable way. It's going to be the more control, more infiltration into our lives, less privacy, all that stuff. So it's, yeah, there's so many nuances to this, even like what you were saying with the classroom, like between the lines, like even the main things that make a lot of sense that people always talk about. It's just those little nuances of the day to day that can really impact mentally, like it has with me, like not having a job. I was lost for a bit, you know, I'm already like scatterbrained as it is. And then I'm even more scatterbrained because I don't have like a schedule and a formal kind of plan on what I'm going to do throughout the day, which is something I still have to work on. Like just my organization skills and just getting things accomplished little by little. But it's definitely been hard for me.
Yeah, I've seen that with various families I've worked with, depending on their journey with their children, that the students who were in school the longest just are not self-starters, and then the ones who were homeschooled or even unschooled for longer periods of time, depending when the various families might have migrated out of the mainstream, even within the same family, that those younger ones typically are, as they get older, more assertive and so forth, because it's that damage that we get, that we really do become inured. How's that for an old word? Inured. We become trained, which is an animal term, to just always just take to take dictation. And even with these shutdowns, that's another thing I wonder, if people aren't self-starters, of course they're going to be on Netflix for 20 hours a day or whatever.
Yeah, I have a coworker. I mean, he's working with me, but yeah, on his downtime, he's talking about how he's just on Netflix all the time. He's like, watch some shows with me. We'll talk about it at work. I'm like, like I've been slacking on doing learning myself personally, but yeah, like I'm not that much of a self-starter. Like me getting my butt in gear to get some videos out on a pretty consistent basis, it just hasn't been happening for me, and like you're saying, we've been trained into that kind of box, and it's only been a few years of me trying to break out of that. So it's still a lot of unlearning I still have to do. So it's extremely tough.
The book I mentioned here, which I'm just finishing up because it's on my mind, is The Outline of History, and by H.G. Wells, which is an interesting book and an interesting person. But it knocks off around the time, it was revised a couple of times, but it knocks out around the Second World War. So that gives me an excuse to reread Tragedy and Hope, which at least brings the story up to about the mid 1970s, if memory serves.
Wow, you're going to reread it? So you've already read it? Oh my God.
That's another interesting book, of course. Do you know the background of it?
Yeah, it's Bill Clinton's like mentor, basically. And it's like, was it like 1,000+ pages?
Yeah, it's a long book. Do you know the publication history of that?
No, I do not. I just know that it has a lot of very interesting and valuable information in it.
Yeah, it was published. I don't know the imprint, but it was pulled off the shelves within a week, if memory serves. And it ended up like some guy smuggled it, I think, to Hong Kong and had it reprinted and then shipped back into the country.
He shipped it back. Oh man.
Responsible. I'm going to reread it and review it and do a video on it again. And then I'm going to mention the reason I brought that book up in a second. But and there's a number of books which have had a similar background, where they've been printed and then pulled quickly. Another one is How to Read Donald Duck, which is a critique of Disney in South America. But people think that the press is a lot freer than they in fact are in this country. But Tragedy and Hope, getting back to discouragement and education, which has come up so often here, Nicholas. Tragedy and Hope. Have you read it? Yeah.
No, I haven't. I've heard about it, but I have not read it. I have so many books, even short books I haven't even read yet, but I got to get on it.
That book is, in the conspiracy world or the truth world, it comes up very often, and I think people buy it like they buy maybe other books, and they get more enthusiastic for it. Then they realize they're reading a pretty boring book, a very worthwhile book, but pretty boring unless you're into it. But he brings up Carol Quigley, who you mentioned taught at Georgetown. Carol Quigley brings up the point in this large book. It may actually, I think, be 1,600 pages. It's not 1,000. It's way more than that. At like 8-point font. It's really small font.
Wow.
And most of it's pretty dry history, but he has these maybe a dozen, maybe 24 very interesting, just off-the-cuff statements, which is why it gets people's attention. But towards the end, he kind of rambles around a bit, as I guess old history professors can, and show hosts like take some liberties. But he mentions that that is one of the consequences of modern pedagogy, is that a certain percentage of students will become discouraged about knowledge, that the system is so obnoxious, particularly males. He talks about the damage that coeducation does to men at, we'll say 12 to 13, 14, 15 years of age, because there's such a discrepancy physically between men and women at that age, and the women are much more mature physically and mentally. And so he says that coeducation creates this inferiority complex between men and women in American society into much later life, because the boys are boys at 13 years of age. And that's not necessarily the case for girls, you see. And when they're together, that's very obvious. So it creates this inferiority. But also he points out, and then I'll put a sock in and let you I'll push back against it and comment. But he also points out about that discouragement, that a certain percentage will become, like Marx says, the lumpen proletariat. It will become discouraged. And I know people like that. You probably know people like that. They think they're stupid and they just take that with them.
Yeah. And like for the past couple of years, like I've been doing like reading and watching videos and watching documentaries and doing a lot of learning. But yeah, in the past couple of years, like the past year especially, like I've just been having a lot of mental issues. I get like constant brain fog. I'm not sure where it's coming from. I'm not sure how to solve it. I've tried many different things. So like that's discouraged me from even picking up a book. Because like when I pick up a book, it's almost like I'm reading it and I have to like reread a paragraph. It's like, what did I just, like I'm so used to like being in like a crowded room, you know, and being able to read a book easily. And now it's like I'm in my own room by myself, and it's like I'm like having to like really try to focus and concentrate and soak the information in, because there's no point in me reading it if I'm not going to even remember it. So like me personally, I've had that, and it's been extremely discouraging personally. So I can definitely see where that kind of comes from for people, and how that can definitely be just a vicious circle. And yeah, extremely discouraging at times. Yeah.
Yeah, and you wonder where it comes from. It doesn't come from the 5G. It doesn't come from all the other wavelengths. It doesn't come from, it doesn't come from the chemtrails. It doesn't come from the constant depressing news that's shown. It doesn't come from oxygen deprived masks. Of course, we're under bombardment, man. That's where that's why you got brain fogs and all this stuff.
Yeah, and like, it wasn't until just a couple of years ago that I started taking out chemicals out of my life, and I'm trying to avoid it.
And the new nutrition, yeah,
and yeah, just like spraying Febreze in my house and doing all this other stuff, thinking that stuff smelled good, and now it's like it's so disgusting to me. Like I can't even imagine using that kind of stuff again. But yeah, I think it's just all the wear and tear from all the crap I used to eat as a kid on a consistent basis. I had no nutrition knowledge at all, because obviously they don't really teach you that either in school. But yeah, so many things working against us, like the chemtrails. I remember learning about that, and that blew my mind. Like I couldn't even believe that was even something that was possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This will be a good on-ramp, I think, to talk about orgone. Tell me about orgone and your knowledge of it, and maybe we can get into Wilhelm Reich and that medallion and so forth.
Yeah, I got well, one's my brother's. He wasn't wearing it, so I'm wearing it. But yeah, these
by the way, do you know what you're a little bit younger than I. Do you know what pogs are?
Yes.
Oh, they kind of look like pogs.
Yeah, the really thin ones. Yeah. What do you hit it with? It's you just hit him with another pog, right?
Yeah, you hit it with like this metal pog. So pog, people who are, I would say probably less than 25 years of age. Pogs were these, you tell me, what were pogs? Tell us, and then we'll get on to the orgone.
You would know better than me. Like I know, I've seen them, I've played with them a little bit, but I didn't really know the concept and what was the point entirely.
Pogs were almost like pickup sticks in the early 90s. They were they were probably as big as a silver dollar. And they were, they were cardboard press outs. They had, patterns on it, which jump out at you at first and second grade. That would be a whole other conversation. I swear that colors and smells were different when I was younger, but they have, you know, patterns and colors and so forth, and you would kind of line them up, and you would have to hit them with this metal pog, and depending on which way was up, or the cardboard or the image, you'd have to tally it up, and I think that's how you won.
Oh, okay, that's pretty simple.
But you're not wearing pogs, you're wearing orgone, so tell us about
yes. it. Yeah, so I actually got these from, I actually had some from Barnon 11970, who we talked about briefly before we went on. And
good channel to check out, guys. Check out that channel.
Yeah, he definitely has a lot of videos that are like a little bit in the back up of his uploads. You know, they're a couple of years old, but yes, a lot of valuable stuff there, especially the learning how to make your own organic products. That's how I learned how to do it. That got my foot in the door in that area, so that was really nice. But yeah, I got these from a gentleman on YouTube, S&A's Orgonite. He contacted me when I was doing an unboxing for Orgonite, and yeah, so it's basically the way he makes it. It's powdered metal, so this is like black iron oxide powder, and it's mixed in with the resin, so it creates a coating around all the particles of metal. So it's basically not just a solid layer of metal, but it's actually hundreds and hundreds of layers, because it's being kind of surrounded and encased by the resin, which is organic. So the concept is having layers of inorganic and organic material, and it's basically absorbs the chi energy, or you can call it prana energy, or just any, like, there's different societies that have different names for it, but it's supposed to take that in and also like give out negative ions, which is what we're made up of. So it can help with me. I've noticed like dreams have changed a little bit from when I first started wearing them. I can't really notice the difference now just because I've been wearing them all the time. But besides the dreams, I haven't really noticed anything else other than that. But yeah, this gentleman, Wilhelm Reich, in the 30s, I believe, 30s or 40s, he had a device where he was able to look at patients that had cancer, and he was able to put them in these accumulator boxes, which had like wool and metal in it, and it was able to attract those negative ions into that box, and so he would actually help some people, and his stuff ended up getting ransacked at his location, and a lot of his books were stolen or burned, and his devices and stuff. And he also had other technologies like the Cloud Buster, which was, I forgot what it was, a copper tube into water, and he would use copper tubing to like point it at the sky and create clouds. And there was an instance of him being able to do that in one drought-ridden area. I know on YouTube there are a few documentaries of him, but I mean, I still have a lot to learn in terms of orgonite and being well-versed in at least being able to present that information. But yeah, I've definitely learned enough to know that there is something to it for sure.
Yeah, Wilhelm Reich was a very interesting guy. He was a disciple of Freud's.
Yes.
And when Jung split with Freud, or developed differently, or however, Reich also kind of went in a different direction. And I think the Roosevelt administration got him on basically quack medicine was their charge against him, and he died, I believe, in jail, if memory serves.
Yeah, I think it was a heart attack or something.
Now, you mentioned Barnon 11970, and one of the most, I want to circle back to your channel and some of the content there and some of the books you have on there.
Yeah.
One of the best presentations I found from that man was the one on the United States corporation and the legal system.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And this would be a good time for me to mention that I will be teaching a class online, free class, in the autumn, much like I did the one on Roman history, the first part, this past spring. So keep an eye out for that. And this class will be specifically breaking down the legal system, the admiralty system, and in a systematic way. We're not going to, there's some wild things in that neck of the woods. We're just going to get into actually understanding what it is, what is legal, corporate personhood, and all that. But where I was going with that, Nicholas, is on your channel, you have a number of great books, including Frederick Bastiat's The Law.
Mm-hmm.
And what are,
Oh yeah, I was there's this gentleman on YouTube called Mark Passio. He has a website, whatonearthishappening.com. He's someone I would definitely encourage you to check out. He's definitely a very very genuine guy, but he talks about natural law and like objective morality. And if the more moral a society is, the more free it is. But yeah, he has a something on his website where you can send him a hard drive that's a terabyte or larger, and he'll send you a terabyte's worth of data. So it's gonna be books, audio, and then or like audiobooks and also videos. So I was able to get all that stuff, like all those other things that I've been uploading were specifically from that hard drive. I just literally just uploaded it from that hard drive, and I put the link in the description for people to go check it out so they can get all of that. And you don't even have to pay anything. You can give him a donation if you choose to, but he is doing it out of the kindness of his own heart, just to spread that information.
That's great that you have those resources up on your site because, and maybe you've noticed this too, in the, I don't know, what adjective or what noun would you apply to this community online and in real life, most importantly, of conservative, truth, patriot? What do we call this? You understand the slipperiness that I'm perceiving?
Yeah, because it is basically putting a label in a box. You know, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, truther doesn't sound that bad to me. I don't mind that. I mean, patriot, I mean, it doesn't have to be like a country thing. And maybe just more like I like the anarchist kind of mindset, but yeah, in terms of like actually delving into stuff, yeah, I would say like truther is pretty good, truth movement, but I haven't really thought about that too much. I remember I saw your interview with Jason Burmis. I remember you posed that question to him, and like just that whole context, how would you kind of describe it or name it? Yeah, I think truther is pretty good.
And in this community, such as it is, one of the things I noticed, making reference to all the great content on your site and the audiobooks in particular, is that people are making errors of fact because they don't know the history of things and they don't do that reading. I remember there's one young one who, so from this neck of the woods, from this truth community, whatever, and this was in the context of the early coronavirus shutdowns, and she was stating things about, you know, the president should just override the governors and this and that, and she was making statements that she didn't understand just the history in this country of federalism and just devolving power onto the states and this sort of thing. And it's so good that you have those texts on your site because they allow for this deeper meditation. Very often literature can allow us to do that in a way that just the latest news story can't.
Yeah, and even me personally, like most of those uploads that I put up there, like I haven't even personally gone through myself, you know, like I have them up there as resources and I have them on my hard drive, you know, easily accessible any time of the day. But like even I haven't even been doing that, and I'm the one that's uploading that stuff because I know that it's important. And so yeah, those have been my most successful videos, was like the Carl Jung one, Memories and Memoirs, and also the audio course by Bruce Lipton, The Wisdom of Your Cells. Like those have been like my most successful videos, and they've like just taken off. I had a couple other ones on YouTube that they just copyrighted and they gave me a warning. So I'm posting all that stuff on BitChute. So yeah. I have even more uploads with information and documentaries on BitChute, since they don't do anything like that.
Yeah, by the way, audience, I hope you are aware of this. It is increasingly harder to operate. It's at the point now where I'm having difficulty finding sites where I can pull these videos from YouTube, which is recording to YouTube, my video, and pull the file and get it up onto other sites, because this StreamYard is kind of set up for YouTube. I'm going to have to reconfigure it perhaps, but it's at the point you can't even take recordings off of your own channel on YouTube. And I think, Nicholas, you just referenced that sort of dynamic too with, oh, it's a copyright strike and this sort of thing.
Yeah. And yeah, I've been trying to get into other like technology, or not technology, but other platforms like BitChute. And I was on Steemit for a bit. There's minds.com. There's library, LBRY.TV, I believe. There's BitTube. It's also one that BitTube.tv. That's one I recently got into, and I'm getting more views on that than videos the same video from years ago. I'm getting more views in like a couple days than I did in like a few years on YouTube. It's been extremely discouraging. That's probably one reason why I haven't wasn't as consistent with making videos, was just because I'm getting like 10 views. I feel like I know that they're squashing me, because I know that I'm not really putting too much thought into how I'm wording my titles or wording my description or what I physically say like in the video. Because I know that there's some channels that like don't say a certain phrase because they know it'll be flagged, and I haven't done any sort of like steps in that direction. So I know I don't get that much traction, but yeah, it's definitely
every
hard.
word that we're not allowed to say on this on YouTube in this recording, and I'd like it to stay that way too. You see.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that algorithm, and it is discouraging. It is discouraging to see that. But hey, people, there are other websites than YouTube and Google out there, and Nicholas just brought a few of them up, so take some notes.
Yeah. And it's hard, even just uploading on one site, that can be a little time consuming. You still got to make the video and all that stuff, but then hitting all the other platforms at the same time, yeah, it can be a little bit of extra work, but you'll definitely be reaching more people that way. So it's the reward versus like the time is definitely worth it, in my opinion.
Nicholas, you had mentioned, as we're at the hour mark already, believe it or not, you had mentioned that you'd like to get into self-help. So I'm going to throw this out here. You want to get into that now, or could I nail you down in a few weeks' time or a few months' time for a special treatment just on self-help, and maybe some practices we do? Maybe some viewers can give some thoughts on that type of maintenance and whatnot. What would you like to do?
I'd love to come back again. I mean, I feel honored that you even went out of your way to comment on my videos and ask. Like it really means a lot. I've never had someone go out of their way to try to interview me, So I would love to be on again, and just having, like you said, like a self-help one. And like I'm trying to do some more stuff internally in myself, because I've been having a rough couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And I got some books that I have on the pipeline that I'm trying to look at. So yeah, that gives me plenty of time to also kind of wet my whistle a little bit more in that self-help and what it's going to do for me.
Great. So we'll chat about that once we knock off here. We'll stay on and iron that out. But let's get into some viewer comments here, and then we'll wind it up and let you get off to your dinner and all that sort of thing. So I'm just going to start from the bottom and work my way up here. So I guess that's probably not smart, because people might add more than there might be various thoughts here. Okay. So, and I'm just going to bring them up. You want to comment, we're going to bring it up. If you want to comment, Nicholas, do so, and then I'll move on to the next one. So here we go from Sun Green, a loyal viewer. Thank you, Sun. What do we have there? You want to read it out there, Nicholas?
It is truly shocking to witness the level of mind control. Very much so. Yeah. And like I was previously saying with people at my work, like even people that I thought were aware enough to see through it, which they did, they still chose to do the check. I'm going to get my paycheck. I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to get my temperature taken. I'm going to get my check, and it's extreme dependency, and it's very sad, especially like when worse comes to worse, when push comes to shove, like what are we really going to do? Like, are we going to stand by what we were saying, or are we going to just cave in because everyone else is doing it and I got to get fed somehow?
Excellent. Yes. Next one up, Sun Green as well.
Thank you very much, Sun Green. Sending you good vibes and well wishes. Same to you, man. Thank you so much.
Okay, coming up here with John.
Well, what happened, Officer Chauvin in Minneapolis? There could be more, but accountability does exist. To an extent, yeah. to an extent, but just systematically, just the way that the police force is in general. And it's, if you're a whistleblower in the police station, oh yeah, get ready to not have many friends. They have that thin blue line. And I have a friend that's trying to be a police officer. And I mean, I've told her my bit about what I think about it, but she understands that, yeah, there's so much of that cult mindset where it's you're for us or you're against us, even if you're pointing out things that we're doing are wrong. So there is some accountability for sure, but.
Okay, next one up is Sun Green again.
The Queen will probably be stepping down in a few months.
It's funny. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I mentioned that in a recording I did outside today, and it's interesting. There are a number of to use St. Paul's expression, powers that be. One of which, Henry Kissinger, lives about 10 miles from here, that just seem to keep going on. They just don't ever die.
Yeah.
The Queen is one of those.
Yeah, most certainly.
All right. And then here we go. Last one from John.
Wilhelm Reich, Orgon. Perhaps you should recommend Mr. Peter read Dr. Jones's Libido Dominandi.
So that is E. Michael Jones, whom I've had on one time, and he was lately deplatformed from Amazon. He wrote this book, Libido Dominandi, and he also wrote another book, which I don't have here right now, called Degenerate Moderns. And a lot of his argument in his Culture War magazine, if people are unfamiliar, and the viewers or yourself, Nicholas, a lot of his critique is including with Reich, is that there was a lot of weaponization of sexuality, and in Degenerate Moderns he brings up that argument and Libido Dominandi as well. So that's what John is referencing there, just that critique of Reich that Jones has. Oh,
okay. Yeah, I appreciate that, John. Thank you.
Great. So anything else, Nicholas, for this roundabout?
No, we've trekked across a few subjects and it's been awesome. Yeah, it's.
Do you have your channel? What is it on YouTube and BitChute and things?
On YouTube, it's Nicholas Peter. It's the name that you guys can see. And then on BitChute, it's the same thing. It's Nicholas Peter. And I haven't really been posting on other ones too much, but yeah, there is a bittube.tv, and it's also Nicholas Peter. And yeah.
The difficulty of all these platforms is just the time it takes to get up onto each one. It is kind of a slog. That's the downside of it.
And yeah, and some of the upload processes are slower than YouTube, especially, so that it does make it a little bit more difficult. But yeah, I gotta talking with you, and I have an interview that I did yesterday with a friend of mine, and I'm gonna upload that soon. But just talking with other people, it's definitely something that's gonna help inspire me, because I went to a conference in September for anarchists, and I was so passionate when I went there, and then I come back home and just the people around me and the environment I'm in, it definitely brought me down. And I stopped doing videos for a little bit and kind of lost my way, and I'm trying to get that back, but yeah, it's hard to go on different channels and post different things, but yeah, people can find my work there, and hopefully I'm going to be uploading some stuff in the near future. So
excellent. And once again, this is Nicholas Peter, and I'm John Coleman. If you're interested in actually studying here in person, not socially distanced, here in New Milford, Connecticut, you may go to ApocatastasisInstitute.wordpress.com. I remind the viewers that our journal, our semesterly journal, is out. We have articles from John Michael Talbot, the musician and monk. We have an article by Margaret Benedict from the Gaffney Center about her work getting youth scholarships to college, very often first people in their family. We have poetry by Ed Biro, a member, previous guest on this series, Ed. And then we have a reprint of an article from the 19th century by Henry David Thoreau. And that PDF, as well as information about the Where is Education Going webinars later this summer, will be on the WordPress site. So with that, Nicholas, don't sign off, but I do want to thank you for your time on this conversation with yourself.
Yeah, not a problem at all. I really appreciate you reaching out, and it's been a pleasure talking with you. Seeing your other videos, just your personality, you're a little quirky, you know, and I thought you were just a super genuine guy, and I definitely had a connection with you when I saw you. So I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. I appreciate it.
Good man, Nick. Thank you.
You're welcome. Take care.